Hello, and welcome to a Native Yoga Center. My name is Todd, McLaughlin, and today Ashtanga Yoga for complete beginners, triangle pose, Utthita Trikonasana. Today I'm going to share a couple of different tips and tricks that you can use in ways to connect to triangle pose. And I am going to assume that you have never practiced the triangle pose before. And even if you are experienced with triangle pose, perhaps I can shed a little bit of light on some different ways that you can practice and approach Utthita Trikonasana. So on that note, in Ashtanga Yoga, the beginning position is in Samasthiti. The first vinyasa is to inhale and step out to the right. So now the first thing that we can analyze in triangle pose is the triangle that we create with our legs. So from one foot over to the other, from one foot up to the hips, from that hip down to the other foot, we're attempting to create a triangle shape. And so the idea is that we'll create a relative equilateral triangle, because right now I have a triangle, but the base is too narrow. And right now I have a triangle, however, the base is definitely too wide. So one of the rules of thumb is that the distance of the leg from the heel to the hip would be the same distance if the leg were laid on the ground from one side to the other. So this would be a decent triangle pose width. Now, the next challenge is to rotate on the leg that we're going to lean over to. So in this case, I'm going to go to the right side. So we turn our right foot in a direct line out. So if I turn towards you and we have the line of the yoga blanket here, right now my foot is angled at about 90 degrees over to the side. Here I'm going to angle my foot straight ahead. So one thing we often see is the foot's turned a little in. Very rarely would someone go wider than the straight line. But one of the ideas is to attempt to try to get this thigh straight ahead. Now, when we establish this, the back foot will bring in, if 90 is straight to the side, we're going to bring it in to about an 85 or 80 degree angle. So in other words, if we start off with the feet parallel to each other, then we can turn the toes out in a straight line. And with the back foot, we could keep it at 90, but I recommend bringing it slightly in. So now we have the legs in a good setup. Now what happens when we start to come out over to the side and coming down, a couple of different things happen. One, we're going to attempt to bring our hand down on our leg. Now in Ashtanga Yoga, the full grip position is to use the two fingers, the index and middle, and slide them in between the big and second toe and hold on to the big toe. Now, the challenge of this, I'm going to point out a couple different things that occur. My hamstrings, if my hamstrings are tight, I go down, and as I start to go down, the only way I can get my hand lower is if I bend my knee to come down and grab the toe. And at this point, it's not really the triangle pose so much anymore. It's a little closer to what's considered the side angle pose. So what I suggest you do is take the hand only down as far along the leg that you're able to keep the front leg straight. So in other words, as you're coming down, if your knee starts to bend, stop going down, try to get the leg straight, and then see how far down can you take the hand and still keep the leg straight. When you find where that tension builds up in the hamstrings and a little bit here in the adductor on the inner thigh, that's where you can stop. Now here I have a chair, and if I'm having a tough time with balance, like I have students who balancing in triangle is very difficult, a little sketchy even. So with that being said, sketchy in the sense that they might fall over. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a chair for some stability. So I'm just going to place my hand on a folding chair, and that way I can work into the triangle while keeping my stability and balance with that hand on the floor. Now, there are a whole bunch of different triangle pose alignments. within every single tradition. For example, you might traverse into a triangle realm where the feet are really wide and the hand lands on the floor. You might come into the Ashtanga realm, where here I'm putting a little emphasis on the Ashtanga style, where you will have the hand all the way down on the big toe. And what I'm doing here is just taking a modified approach to help you get comfortable with your triangle so that you can have your hand here on your thigh, and then we can approach focusing on some of the other ingredients so that once you have your feet stabilized and set, you've determined how far down you can go with your hand on your leg. Next up, we're going to start working with the alignment of the body in terms of this back and forth plane that occurs. So if I turn this way to you, what you're going to be able to observe is that if I go to come down into my triangle and my hamstrings are a little tight, so I kind of try to work around the hamstrings by coming forward like this, we often see this a lot for triangle pose, where now the hips are sticking way out over here and the upper body is leaning way out over here, and this arm is somewhere over here like this, right? From the side, it would be like I'm coming down, and I end up coming forward to be able to come down. So now the next alignment technique or strategy or idea is, imagine there's a glass pane on this side and there's a glass pane on this side, so that when I'm coming into the triangle, I'm trying to stay within that realm of the glass pane on one side and one on the other, and I have no room to actually fall forward. The opposing element is sometimes we see people bowing way, way, way back. Now, don't get me wrong, there are styles of yoga where people do consciously do that big back bendy bow kind of shape, but here I'm going to focus on the alignment of like a vertical line from the right hand to the left hand. So if we come into our triangle, and again, I'm facing you so that you can see which way the lines are going. If I'm here, what I might do is take my hand a little higher, push the hips a little forward, and bring the left shoulder above the right shoulder, so I create more of a vertical line from the foot all the way up to the hand. So that's another key ingredient that we attempt to apply in the triangle. There's another interesting idea that I want you just to kind of watch these two different ways of doing this and then tell me which one you like. And you can always comment here as I'm doing this live, and you can always leave a comment in our comment section. I will answer you if you're watching this recorded. All right, so let's see here. I'm coming down into my triangle, and I'm going to go all the way from my big toe because I have enough hamstring flexibility to achieve that. And now notice how my arm is kind of like going out over this way. Now I could try to get an alignment where my arms are exactly apart from each other, so that part of the idea of the name of the Uttita Trikonasana is Uttita, like reach your arms apart, create extended, where you're reaching from fingertip to fingertip, one side to the other. There's this feeling of expansion. Part of the idea in Hatha Yoga is in the body, feel expansion so that the mind can feel some expansion. So that if we're real tight and closed up and really pessimistic and feeling negative about everything, that through expansion and opening the awareness, and we do that with the body, that will feel expanded. All right. So with that being said, I could or can take a block and put my hand on a block. And now I can really focus on the straight line effect of going vertical, left arm right above the right arm, versus when I go from my big toe, I'm kind of reaching out. Now, in my opinion, there is no like perfect way to do it. Part of the idea is set up the alignment ideas in place the best you can and feel it. That's the main idea. Like, feel what you're doing, breathe while you're in the pose, experience what it feels like to put your body into the pose. Remove the idea of I have to look like the person in the magazine, and go into, or online, social media, whatever, go into the idea of understanding how does it feel, what am I attempting to do, and the next key ingredient is, do I have pain? Do you have pain? If you have pain in your body, Think of the yoga pose as you're using the yoga pose to help reduce the suffering, to remove the pain. So if I have extreme hamstring pain, as I come down, I'm going to back up. And when I get here, I can feel my legs. We can use our quadricep muscles to contract. And in that sense, as I use my quads, I'm working a little more from the belly. And I'm going to try to pull. If I just dump into my hamstring like this, I'm going to feel a lot of stretch in my hamstring. I'm not going to move my hand positioning, but right now I'm going to pull my belly in. I'm going to get my back a little straighter. And I'm going to try to lift through the engagement of the core. Now I don't feel my hamstring as much. Right now I feel my hamstring a lot. Right now I don't feel my hamstring as much. So what we want to do is think, I'm going to draw energy from my feet, from the point that's touching the earth. I'm going to draw energy from my feet up through the body and create expansion from the floor or ground all the way up and out. And so by paying attention, feeling the pose, observing what's happening, working from the center, work from the center, keep your quad muscles engaged, pull the energy up through the feet. Then if you can go down deeper, great, but try to maintain the alignment details of keeping your body in this plane nice and even. Keep your legs in the triangle shape as relatively even as you can, and focus on engaging the belly. The other thing I want to add to this today is that triangle pose, personally, because I deal with some back pain, is that it actually can be a rough pose when my back is flared up. Something about what happens in triangle is that in relation to the spine, when we're in triangle pose, we're doing a little bit of a side bend, and there's also a little bit of like a torquey kind of twist motion that can happen with the hip and the lower section of the lumbar vertebra in the spine. So when I'm having a day where my back is a little flared up, what I'm going to try to do is keep the spine straight, go into triangle just to the point where I can maintain that alignment where the back doesn't hurt. And I'm not going to go really deep. I'm not worried about going down and touching my toe. I'm going to focus on engaging the core. So this is something to keep in mind. If you are somebody who has a back pain, you suffer from back pain, don't worry about going super deep on your triangle. Focus more on the engagement of the belly and working through the engagement of the core. I hope this helps. Do you have any questions? If you do, send me a message. I'll happily answer the questions you have in the comments, or I'll make a video specific for you. Thank you so much. Let me check out and see if I received any comments during the actual session. I did, actually. Thank you so much. I have thank you, Michael. Great to see you. Thanks for adding your comment and for joining into the session. Also, my amazing and lovely wife. It's not showing. Where is it? There it is. This one will be so great. Thank you, Tamara. I appreciate you believing in me. All right. Until next time. Namaste.